the territory of Chile, has been populated since at least 3000 BC. By the 16th century, Spanish invaders began to raid the region of present-day Chile, and the territory was a colony. From 1540 to 1818, when it gained independence from Spain, the country's economic development was successively marked by the export of first agricultural produce, then saltpeter and later copper. The wealth of raw materials led to an economic upturn, but also led to dependency and even wars with neighboring states. Chile was governed during most of its first 150 years of independence by different forms of restricted government, where the electorate was carefully vetted and controlled by an elite. Failure to address the economic and social increases and increasing political awareness of the less affluent population, as well as indirect intervention and economic funding to the main political groups by the CIA, and, as part of the Cold War, led to a political polarization under socialist President Salvador Allende. This in turn resulted in the 1973 coup d'etat and the military dictatorship of General Augusto Pinochet, whose 17-year regime was responsible for many human rights violations and deep, market-oriented economic reforms. In 1990, Chile made a peaceful transition to democracy and initiate a succession of democratic governments. The first European to sight Chilean territory was Ferdinand Magellan, who crossed the Strait of Magellan on November 1, 1520. However, the title of discoverer of Chile is usually assigned to Diego de Almagro. Almagro was Francisco Pizarro's partner, and he received the southern area, Nueva Toledo. He organized an expedition that brought him to central Chile in 1537, but he found little of value to compare with the gold and silver of the Incas in Peru. Left with the impression that the inhabitants of the area were poor, he returned to Peru, later to be garroted following defeat by Hernando Pizarro in a civil war. By the 1920s, the emerging middle and working classes were powerful enough to elect a reformist president, Arturo Alessandri Palma. Alessandri appealed to those who believed the social question should be addressed, to those worried by the decline in nitrate exports during World War I, and to those weary of presidents dominated by Congress. Promising evolution to avoid revolution, he pioneered a new campaign style of appealing directly to the masses with florid oratory and charisma. After winning a seat in the Senate representing the mining North in 1915, he earned the sobriquet Lion of Tarapacá. By early 1973, inflation had risen 600% under Allende's presidency. The crippled economy was further battered by prolonged and sometimes simultaneous strikes by physicians, teachers, students, truck owners, copper workers, and the small business class. A military coup overthrew Allende on September 11, 1973. As the armed forces bombarded the presidential Palacio de la Moneda, Allende committed suicide.